Hello, people. Welcome. How are you doing? We seem to be moving through a weird spot. Something big seems to have happened last week around the 13th and the 14th. People becoming unplugged. People feeling unable to bridge back to this dimension because they're out in the cosmos somewhere. And people not wanting to come home. And people moving into a death cycle that took them off their feet this weekend. So there's a huge something happening, and that's not what this video is about. So I'm kind of staying in the mystery of what happened last week. But for today, I want to talk into the passion of the masculine. And for that, I need to take the hand of what led me here. So for me, in the last week has been the arrival of a new stream of consciousness. And it's inviting me more deeply into art and creativity, and is expressing a much deeper, older version of the healer feminine medicine woman. It's that kind of energy. And like I said last time, I'm being really careful not to bring too many names to this because I don't want to rebirth the old. I want to invite the energy in and then play with it in a new way. So one of the energies that came in was something I've never seen before, which is called a Triskelion. I think I mentioned it in the last video. And the Triskelion is a really ancient symbol. And so I started making them. I've made 3. I'm getting better. And it's a continuous piece of wire, and the length of it is relevant, and how it's wound is relevant, because when you film this using Kirlian or another, I can't remember the name, gas something, method of filmology, you can see the energy. So I've created one of these to go under my water jug, and then a couple of others that are positioned around the house, but they're basically amplifiers. Okay. And so 3 is creation, blueprint. So I'm playing with that energy, and I don't want to speak too deeply into that. And I'm also playing with another symbol that's been sent to me, which is the pentagram, the 5-pointed star. And so this weekend for me was an art project where I went and harvested some laurel, like a really long frond of laurel hedge, because I kept seeing an image of something that looked like a dream catcher, but it wasn't a dream catcher per se. It was that. So I went out foraging, and I found laurel, and I found rosemary, a really long piece of rosemary. So I cut those and brought them in, and then started to wet them down so they would bend, and then I put them in a bucket of water so that they would start to move into a circle. So long on short, I get all my creative gear out, and I start to create. Actually, I started to create something that looked like a dream catcher. And as it evolved, it didn't want to be a dream catcher, and I just stayed in the mystery of it, because this is the feminine. She's not really bothered about the answers, that logical. I was just in flow state and having a ball. And I had this pull to weave sound into it. So I moved from the music I was listening to, which is actually quite old medieval music, because I don't want to rebirth that into it. And I switched to classical music because from a harmonic and energetic point of view, it's pretty much as good as it gets. So that leads us here to what I want to talk about today, because what followed has been a beautiful journey from Sunday to today, okay? And it's all around the masculine. So I'm going to read notes. Let me just turn this glare down. I'm going to read notes. And then we'll talk about it. I have to say, I know I never say this, and I know I swear a lot because I love swearing, but there is a bad language warning in this, because to tell you the story I need to tell you, I need to use the C word, and I'm going to whisper it so YouTube don't hear me, but I'm going to use it. So bad language warning. If you're offended by bad language, then you may have to click off. And I love you all the same. Okay, so Sunday, weaving ancient symbols, something guided me to weave different energy into them to birth something new. So I moved to classical music, and among many, I listened to Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, and Beethoven. I listened and I felt and I allowed the music to take me where it may. I felt my heart soar up to the cosmos with open wings, riding feral cosmic winds and shedding unwanted detritus. Then I crashed down to earth, falling deeper into her underbelly, into swirls of angry mental confusion and darkness, until the compression of the mind broke through into gentle lapping waves, and I'm on the seashore, staring down at them, exhausted and bone weary. I feel the excitement of a child on Christmas morning, waiting to open her presents. I waltzed, I polkaed in bustled skirts, felt the dizziness and exhilaration of twirling to music. I fell into deep rapport, tucked into a corner in deep, quiet conversation, unraveling the mysteries of life, and my heart opened to the unknown and moved me to tears as the music laid itself bare before me with nothing left to hide. You feel that? Who are these men? These are all male composers. These are men that took me to those dizzying heights and brought me crashing down, took me into a corner and helped me explore life. I journeyed with men, okay? So who are these men and where do they exist in modern society? Where do I see them? What is it in them that can move me so deeply? So I did some research, and here are the highlights, and there is a pattern. Tchaikovsky, Russian composer, eventually became a Russian composer after first capitulating to his parents' wishes that he become a civil servant. To become a civil servant, he had to go into education, so he was taken away and put into boarding school. He was taken away from his mother, 10 years old, and then made to mourn her loss 4 years later when she died suddenly. Tchaikovsky only began studying his passion for music around 2021, after serving 4 years as a civil servant in his mid-30s. He married a woman in an effort to help suppress the whispers around his sexual preference. I didn't know Tchaikovsky was gay, or it is largely believed Tchaikovsky was gay. After marrying this woman, he left her weeks later, and the marriage ended in his abandonment, later compounded by a breakdown and his suicide attempt. In spite of him having to hide who he was his whole life and his loss of personal identity, Tchaikovsky became extremely successful and is most widely known for Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, Nutcracker. He died aged 53. His death was officially reported as cholera, but many biographers believe he committed suicide following a sex scandal. Rachmaninoff was a composer, pianist, and conductor. He composed one of his best concertos, number 2, after a 4-year period of depression where he was actually put into an asylum for therapy. 4 years of depression. His breakthrough seemed to launch a 16-year-long career explosion, seeing him bringing piano in more and more so that he could explore the expressive nature of the instrument. Beethoven. Beethoven, German pianist and composer, widely considered to be one of the greatest musical geniuses of all time. How many people have heard that? It's become a cliche. I've heard that 100 times. He was an innovator, using vocals with instruments and creating a bridge to connecting the Romantic era into the classical era. When I read this bit, I asked myself, I wonder if he's a Sag, because that's mutability. That's what a mutable sign does. It bridges between worlds. I checked his date of birth and he's a Sagittarius. Beethoven was taught music by his abusive alcoholic father. He was beaten while balancing on a stool so he could reach the keys. He was beaten for every single mistake. This soon accelerated to daily torture, beatings, sleep deprivation, and being locked in a cellar. After his first recital, aged 7, and his withdrawal from school, aged 10, he began to study with the newly appointed court organist, Neef, I think his name was. By the age of 12, he'd published his first composition, and age 14, he requested a job as assistant court organist to support his now worsening alcoholic father, who could no longer support his family. Beethoven's personal life was marked by a struggle against deafness, and some of his most important works were composed during the last 10 years of his life, when he was quite unable to hear. He never married or had children, despite being madly in love with a married woman. Imagine the torture of unrequited love. In July of 1812, he wrote her a long love letter that he never sent. It was addressed to you, my immortal beloved. The letter said, in part, my heart is so full of so many things to say to you. Ah, there are moments when I feel that speech amounts to nothing at all. Cheer up. Remain my true, my only love, my all as I am yours. Beethoven's loneliness began to descend into madness towards the end of his life, famously attempting to break a chair over the head of a prince. He revealed in a heart-wrenching letter to his friend Franz Wegler, I must confess that I lead a miserable life. For almost 2 years, I have ceased to attend any social functions just because I find it impossible to say to people, I'm deaf. If I had any other profession, I might be able to cope with my infirmity, but in my profession, it's a terrible handicap. He died at the age of 56 from post-hepatitic cirrhosis of the liver. And from great sadness and pain, beauty comes. The depth these men went to pull up their beauty and turn it into art. So again, who are these men and where do they exist in society? Is it their wounding that makes them feel so deeply? And so sensing I was going to make this, I'm going to bring this in. In my heart, there is a coil. It's just to the left of my heart. And my throat feels nervous even speaking this through. So I'm just being with that. So this morning, I asked permission from a client to share a story that we did this week. And I've called the story, "Can't He Just Hold Her Fucking Hair?" So the client came in and declared he was in procrastination. And the procrastination kind of turned out to be more like, well, what next? It was that kind of energy. Well, what next? And anything could happen, he said. He asked me to pull a card, which I did. And while I'm shuffling, he says, it's like this is the bit between throwing up and waiting for the headache to kick in. He uses an analogy that he uses in his work about holding the bucket for others to be sick and what's the best thing you can do for your friend, particularly your female friend. I jokingly say, hold her hair. And he nods and says, yeah, hold her hair back and let her be sick and don't judge her for it. And ooh, that's an interesting one. I can feel that now in my heart. It feels like a laying down to die. It's gone lateral from being vertical, it's gone lateral. And it's black. So he says, ooh, that's an interesting one. He then moves into process. This is the male-female thing. And it's like, and then I hold up the card that had come out. And the card was, free from judgment, free to love. And he ponders the card and says, yeah, it's about hold her hair back, let her be sick, put her to bed and watch her. And don't do that fucking cuntish behaviour that some blokes do. I see he's becoming emotional and I ask, what's that emotion? Sadness at men, just bitter disappointment. This then takes him into an older, deeper story, and we continue. And what comes in is, where is the protector? Who is protecting? And this unspoken question begins to emerge around who protected the little boy when he was hurting. This is interesting because it's my left side now. It's left throat, it's left heart. Just notice I'm staying in a mystery. I'm not trying to figure this out. I'm bringing what is present. Okay. Who is holding these wounded men? Who's holding them? What are they doing with their woundedness? And another story with a different client who was so stuck in the mind that after moving into it and having to actually give himself permission, he screamed out of the blue, screamed. And there was so much energy in it, it came right through me. This is online. came right through me, this energy. And it was fury, fury. But that helped begin the journey to get him back into his body, because he was completely unplugged. It's just living here, crazy town. And that began the descent back into his body. So this was preventing him from expressing anger. He was being a good man. He was being a good man, a gentle man. But we've taken it too far. Society has taken this too far. What is a gentleman? What does he do with his anger in trying to be gentle? What does he do with his anger in trying to be right, loving, kind, caring, provider? Oh, it's exhausting. I actually want to vomit. I actually want to vomit. I may have to pause this video just to move into process. But it feels like unexpressed. It just feels like, yeah, I don't know what the word is, but it's an unexpressed story. Tea always helps. So, I was getting ready to make this video, and I needed help because it felt like quite a big field of information. Here in it feels really simple. Feels really simple. What's happening to the masculine wounding is that simple. Okay. And the passion of the masculine. Where's the passion of the masculine? So I'm shuffling a deck of cards, and I ask, what is holding the frame for this? What is holding the frame for this? And immediately this card flipped over. Couldn't make it up. I love it. Excuse me. And the card was this. Chiron is known as the wounded healer. And I think we have a Chiron conjunction or retro or something coming up in July. So it looks like the field is forming, because there's a really big old wound getting coughed up here. And it's around, how do I express my anger as a man in the world? That's what it is. How do I express my anger as a man in the world? How do I express my passion as a man in the world without being misunderstood? Why am I adapting to you? You know, you could say that for every person. That's a collective thing. But here we have a masculine wounding. So we've got an old pattern which is showing itself for healing. I'm going to close my notes down because they're distracting. We've also got this coming in. And I'm seeing the mind as a bridge between the trauma and the creation. The trauma of a little boy balancing on a stool to play a keyboard whilst being beaten by his father. The violation of that little boy's art is sinful. That's a word I never use. Oh, I'm getting into it now. That's a sinful behavior. The sinful abuse of children. And we use the mind to escape the feelings. That's a given. We know that. But do we use the mind to bridge between the trauma and the creation of a thing? You know, an opera, a piece of music, a book, a pentagram. How are we using the masculine and the feminine to create that? And what does everything I've just said say to my inner masculine, your inner masculine, because that's in me. That wounding is in me. So this is quite a big old story. I don't know how deep to go with this, I'll be honest. I don't know how big to go with this because it's huge. It is huge. It is. It is. Abuse of power in children. Oof. That's, well, that creeps into big business. That creeps into religion. Creeps into education. And it creeps into government. There you go, the 4 pillars. Evidence of all 4 in the system having abused children. Is that where I'm going with this? I feel like I've just inhaled black ink into my solar plexus and into my heart, or it's flowing into my heart. Solar plexus and heart. I may need to bang the crap out of my drum after this video just to clear that through. So where are the protectors? Where is the protector in me, for me? Where is the protector in you, for you? Where is that? Where is that? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Injured instincts. That came up 3 times last week. I'm going to pause this. I've never used the pause button before, but there's a piece of writing. I know exactly where to find it. I'm going to pause this and find it. I'll be back in a minute. I'm back. Okay, so what's been coming, it's come in 3 times in the last week, is an excerpt from a brilliant book called Women Who Run with the Wolves. It's by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. I remember I've had this book years and years and years. I remember when I brought it into the house and my partner's balls crawled back up into the scrotum and he said, "Oh, holy shit." Frightened him to death. Anyway, it's a brilliant book. And whilst intrinsically it's written for woman or the female spirit, this speaks straight into what I'm bringing. The instinct injured woman usually gives herself away because she has a difficult time asking for help, recognizing her own needs. Her natural instinct to fight or flee are drastically slowed or extincted. Recognition of the sensations of the satiation of taste, suspicion, caution, and the drive to love fully and freely are inhibited or exaggerated. The impulse to play is an instinct. No play, no creative life. Be good, no creative life. Sit still, no creative life. Speak, think, act, only demurely, little creative juice. Any group, society, institution, or organization that encourages women to revile the eccentric, to be suspicious of the new and unusual, to avoid the fervent, the vital, the innovative, to impersonalize the personal. No play. It's like, whoa, okay. It's like the murder of creativity. This is the really old stuff. This is really old stuff. It's the murder of creativity. It's why we can't channel our own Kundalini. from source. You know, you saw me do this the other day. I called it magic, but if you need an easier word, Reiki. Reiki symbols, that's the Choku-Rei. Reiki symbols are channeled straight out of the ether. That I channeled straight out of the ether. It's just a symbol, just as someone channeled that straight out of the ether. That can energize water. It's just energy, and it only comes through creative play, meaningless joy, passion. Passion. How many passionate people do you know? Truly passionate people. Eccentric, crazy, wild, feral, passionate people. Yeah. I'm going to share a film with you for anybody that gets Netflix. The film is called Captain Fantastic. I'm not going to say anything about it. If you're moved to check out a film called Captain Fantastic, then I can't recommend it highly enough. It will be a double or a three watcher for me. I watched it last night and I didn't know what emotion I was feeling. And what it was, well, I don't know what it was. It was really high. It was, I don't know what it was. It was everything all at once. Everything all at once. Beautiful film. Highly recommend it. So I think for today, I'm going to... I'm being guided to stay with it. I think it's the nervous part of me that doesn't want to stay with this because it's tentacular. Is that even a word? Because of its tentacles. It's coming out. It's going to get exposed more. And I know it has been. I know it has been. We keep burping the lid and taking off layers and layers of abuse. And okay, so it's like, because we're doing the work, so 2020 is seeing the resurrection of the child, and I am a tiny speck of dust in that, but that's everything I'm doing with every client. It goes back to the wounded child. You know, we are wounded, grown wounded adults, and so we're resurrecting this wounded child into some kind of, can we find the joy in that child? Can that child find its joy? And it's crazy, and it's naughty, and it's passion, and it's exploring meaninglessness. Can we resurrect that? As within, so without. As we do that within ourselves, that's what's creating tipping point in the external, in the collective. And we're all adding sorcery to the cake mix. Okay? By resurrecting the child, the most dangerous energy on earth. Dangerous energy. I just want to laugh like a mad woman. Like do one of those really wicked laughs. Yeah. So it's showing up in the collective now. And what that's going to do is it's going to break the system open. Remember, we've got Pluto in retrograde for 5.5 months, 5 months. And Pluto is breaking down this top-down structure. This might is right. This misuse of power. It's all coming down. It's coming down. And as we tear down the edifice of our own fakeness, so too will it show up in the outside world. It's a beautifully potent time, and it's dark and it's light. It is everything all at once. So yeah, we have the mind and healing, and we cannot think our way out of this. We've trained ourselves to process emotion with the intellect, with the mind. You've got to go south, got to drop south, get into the body. The body will give you the story. And because I have free will, I'm going to end this with cards. But I fancy that it's going to open up and grow tentacles, and I will be a big brave girl, and I will bring whatever shadow needs to be met. I feel confused. Yes. I think I've just been given instructions. Sorry. Looks like I will be enlarging on this, and we'll dive in, and if anybody wants to come and play and help explore these dirty timelines. When I say dirty timelines, I'm talking about religion, war. And that war is now present again in the system. We've got people doing Templar timeline cleaning, crusades, all of that Arthurian stuff is coming up. I'm seeing it. It's coming up. Yeah, our charge is to enlarge, and your charge is to enlarge. It's got to be, because I showed you the card, so you're contractually obligated. Okay. Oh yeah. Hello? Honor the whispers of your soul. So when I honor the whisper of my soul, I start making stuff. Let go of needing to know. We don't have the answers, like I keep saying. My darlings, we're birthing the new, and we've got to create the blueprint for it. What is it going to look like? Can you envision it? I envision children running government. Oh, imagine that world. Kids running the show. Oh, amazing. It'll just be amazing. Oh, yeah, so much conflated, is that the word? Inflated ego. Just, okay, do we need 4? Well, let's see. Yeah. Okay. But how do I realign with love when I've never experienced it? I've literally heard people say that. I hear people say really often, but I don't know what love is. You know, when I question love in the relationship that they're talking about, where they're convincing me how much they love the other, and I question, what do you love? And I can't answer. So how do we realign with love? We've got to find a way, haven't we? I haven't got the answers. I might suggest, in fact, I'll repeat something I said today. In the head, there are only questions. In the heart, there are only answers. And for some, the heart is the most fearful place to go. Fearful. I've had men begging me not to take them there, but they're taking me. So the heart wants what the heart wants. It's the ego that will fight. No. Just get this image of somebody holding onto a door jamb. Don't push me through. Realign with love. Drop into the heart if you can. If you can. This is child energy here. Yee! This is just stupid crazy, isn't it? It's beautiful. Look at that sunshine. It could have been drawn by a child. Kids light up the world when we don't shush them or tidy them or clean them. Ah, how can we get comfortable with their mess? Because that would mean having to see our own mess. Ah, I haven't read this one. What's this? In every moment, the universe is conspiring to bring me towards right-minded thinking and the energy of love. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. In every moment, the universe is conspiring to bring me toward right-minded thinking. The way it does that is it breaks down my bullshit. It makes me realize the fakery in me, in all of us. And that's the energy of love, because love has no conditions. It's unconditional. What do you love about them? I love that there are no conditions. Here's the challenge: to step into your child, into your inner child, because that is joyful presence. And that just pulls joy towards you. That just pulls joy towards you, you know. And the next few months, well, I think the next few years, because there's some, really big shifts happening. I think for the next few years, we're going to need lots of little medicines to help us stay in, because fear can make us literally just leave, find another dimension, so that we look a bit zoned out and crazy. Okay, my beauties, I'm going to leave it there. There will be more on this. We're cleaning up some karmic poo, and it's got to be done. It's got to be done to set us free and heal the child and resurrect the child into some noisy abandon. Noisy, gay abandon in the world. We need crazy in the world. Right. With my love, I'm going to leave you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the, oh God, your comments are blowing me away, people. Really, there's some beauty out there, some real beauty out there. I'm blessed. Thank you. Thanks so much. Take care, and I will see you all again soon.